Hey, let's bring in Annalise Nielsen and Paul Murray in Washington and Pennsylvania. It looks like, as we thought beforehand, shaping up as the key battleground, Annalise.
And look, we still haven't had any of those key swing states called yet. But while we've been looking at the results coming in, there is a lot of prediction that things are going Trump's way. And in particular, the Trump campaign said that they're confident they haven't cannibalised their early votes, because that was a big change in tack this time.
Yeah, look, it's not us saying it. I want to say, New York Times, remember that famous needle, the conversation that started out that Hillary Clinton was 99% going to win the presidency, and then as the election rolled on, it went down and down and down and down and down. Well, right now, Donald Trump is sitting at about 70% chance of winning this election. Now, that is because, as we've spoken about before, the path for Harris was that if she was going to lose something in the blue wall, she had to win something in and around the south of the Sun Belt. She had to win North Carolina. That's not looking like it's going to happen. She would have to win Georgia. That is even further out of her hands right now. So again, the multiple websites and the data people that are just looking at, and it's not a scenario where 70% is going to become 30%. It builds as the night goes on. And right now, a couple of hours in, and again, please, for those half watching along at home or running off to the umpire, the fat bloke with the beard is not saying Trump has won, okay? But what I am saying is that all of the indications are that he is winning at the moment. We'll find out about Pennsylvania, but again, the prediction models right now are saying like 53 to 55% that he's going to win that state. And then we start to look outside of Pennsylvania, where, again, if all three are up for, if all three she's able to hold, well, then it becomes more competitive. If she loses one, there's a chance that he could even get another. And then there's the home state of Tim Walz, the sitting governor and vice presidential candidate, where Republicans would like to think that's a cherry on top, but it's a little too early for dessert.
Well, they thought Minnesota was in play before it was Kamala. Remember, there were Trump rallies in Minnesota, and I mean, there was the handling after the George Floyd riots, and so we'll keep an eye on it. It's definitely not top billing for tonight. But I think one of the interesting things we're seeing from exit polling, and again, exit polling is not perfect. Like most polling, not perfect. Suburban voters, very close margin. We're seeing Black and Hispanic voters coming out for Trump, in particular in some areas where you wouldn't expect them to. And still just the same statistic we've been talking about for months. 3/4 of Americans think that the country's on the wrong track.
Well, and we're going to drum home as well. Independence, okay? So if there was a little improvement for Trump with African Americans, a little, or maybe a little more, but a little improvement in Hispanics. These were the sort of 50-50 knife edge scenarios about how would he eke his way through. But if he's doing better than just a little bit, but then with independence, again, we're seeing state after state that are supposedly part of the 7 competitives, where the margin of where independents went, it's close to 10 points in the choice between Trump and Harris, which brings us back to, again, I'm not going to put cart before the horse here, but we know 80% of the electorate decided months ago, all right? $1 billion or a couple of $1 billion was about trying to find this little
like
bounce.
60%'s locked in, regardless.
Well, and if the economy is the number one issue, and 75% say they're heading in the wrong direction, well, then obviously the scars of the Biden presidency and again, part of the Harris offering was that she did everything to say, I'd make no changes, I'm the same as him, but it's a completely new president. The problem is the damage to some degree for a lot of voters, maybe not the all voters, the decisive voters, the middle of the line voters. See, I know how Twitter gets you. Is to say that that those wounds were too deep. As everyone can see right now, at 195 electoral votes compared to 113, 270 is that magical number. The predictions right now are that it is certainly heading Trump's way at the moment. Also worth noting too here about Florida. Now, Florida is a place, I want you to think about this. Remember, 25 years ago, for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, we were talking about hanging chads and all the rest of it. 25 years later, It's a place that has a bigger population than Pennsylvania, a bigger population than many of all of the swing states.
Yeah.
It's been called decisively for Donald Trump, not just because of the size of what's taken place,
yeah.
but they have completely changed the way that they modernised their election system and counted it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the semi-painful thing that's going to be there about a Pennsylvania is this is not a country bigger than the size of Australia. It is a solid-sized Australian state that you should be able to count relatively quickly.
Yeah.
But
I think Pennsylvania's like 25 million, which is about Australia.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is that. But if you look at Florida, right, even bigger population, and remember, affected by hurricanes, all the rest of it, right, they're able to get a number out as fast as possible. Now, in part, the way they do that is that they're able to open early vote to count it faster, whereas in some states you literally can't even open the mail until exactly things have closed.
Pennsylvania,
and you're going to see in places like Arizona a little bit later in the night. Now, again, the assumption being that why Trump is in this mode of starting to not run away, being very careful, starting to
Are you a little traumatised?
To lean forward. No, I'm not traumatised. I just don't want. I just want to be. 4 years ago, there was this great difference between the day vote and the early vote. I think 4 years later, the overall number of early vote was down. And the concern about people was, well, OK, Trump and the Republicans have successfully got a lot of people to vote early. Well, are they the same people?
Exactly.
You know, reality
That's the cannibalisation.
But the reality is that if it's the independents that at this moment are breaking by a big enough, clear enough margin to start to make things look decisive, then that's what gives me the confidence to believe what, again, smarter minds than I are sitting around with the data sets at the New York Times or Decision Desk that are building the inevitability of a Trump victory at this moment.
I think one of the interesting things I'm really watching for in all this is the generational divide. I don't think we've talked about this enough with this election, and especially when we're talking about the economy. When I talk to older retirees that paid into their Social Security and they were getting it paid now, they paid off their house, they didn't care about the economy. They had their costs sorted out and their life was pretty good. When I was talking to people my age, they felt like they weren't getting to achieve what their parents' generation had achieved. They had to work more jobs to get the same outcome. And I met a lot of women my age who were quietly voting for Trump. And they don't want to admit it. It's not the kind of thing they're going to put on social media. And I'm not saying now, I'm not trying to explain a red wave that I don't even know if it's coming. But there is a bit more nuance, I think, in the generational divide than we give credit.
Well, so this is a really deep and fundamental point, right, which is, and Mick Mulvaney was talking about this a little bit before in relation to Virginia, but it's a conversation that's really important here, which is the way that a lot of people have interpreted the American electorate is through race, sex, gender, age, right? If the election does end up being one that Trump wins, or even a scenario where the vote is playing out the way that it is, and even if it's close and Harris ended up winning, I think rather than looking at things through age, sex, gender, you have to start looking through it economically, rather the layers of the economy as opposed to the sections of the society. Because the assumption again, and in 4 years ago, was the closer you get to the bigger the city, the more reliable the Democrat vote's going to be. Well, of course, the reality is that everyone's had a financially difficult 4 years. The reality of inflation, and this is again a message back to Australia and our politics looking forward to how we talk about, say, state elections that have taken place, or of course the federal election on its way, which is you can't tell people that things are magically better because the numbers coming out of the capital are telling you the national story. The reality of the presidential system is that every 4 years, and if you turn back and have a look at 4 years, you know, as somebody, you know, who lives here, and goodness me, you've got a lot of people staying at your house, the entire Sky families are in your hometown, is that we're in a scenario where things are not 5% more expensive than they were, they're 25, 35. We're talking not just about big stuff, we're talking about eggs, bread, milk. So again, is the President of the United States going to be able to magically wave a wand and drop those prices at Walmart? No. But there's a cumulative effect of just how many times you can get punched before people say, you know what, I don't care what your ads say, my life is not great, and I'm going to push back on you at the election.
And I'll tell you, I know we do have to go back to you, but one of the things that's been trending on social media in the lead up to this election, and I know we don't live online because that does not tell you reality,
don't do that.
But people have been posting, reordering things on the websites from 4 years ago and seeing how much more expensive it is. So they do their Walmart home supermarket delivery and it's twice as expensive. That's pretty convincing stuff when you're talking about things not being affordable.
Exactly. Thank you, Annalise. Paul, appreciate